Hey, what's up, folks? Just wanted to record this quick YouTube video, and it might not be quick. I'm just gonna say it right off the rip. Uh, excuse me. I'm actually going to be getting my Akashic Records reading done tomorrow. It's kind of personal to share that, and at the same time, it's like, a lot of people in the spiritual community already know about it. A lot of metaphysical people and things like that. So it's actually kind of common in those circles. And in a way, I'm guessing, based on one of the ladies I follow on Instagram, Andrea Cox, she does Akashic Records readings as well. In a way, it's not a big deal. But the biggest thing that's there for me today and what I wanted to share is around how important it is in terms of our choices in life, and that's really what the Akashic Records reveals is, why we chose to come here, because I spent a good portion of my life wondering why am I here, because I've gone through so much of my life feeling like I just didn't connect or relate to the people around me, or my communication was either misunderstood or taken as rude or inappropriate or a foot in the mouth disease, or if it wasn't that, then quite oftentimes it was, being mousy and timid and shy and not speaking up for myself, which was like my most common experience out of all of those things that I just mentioned. And then people just end up, taking you as weak and just kind of walking all over you and shitting on you, figuratively speaking, hopefully that's all it is. But in a way, it's like, what's the difference, whether it's physical or literal in terms of somebody crapping on you. The fact of the matter is, it still boils down to standing up for ourselves and speaking our truth. And the parents have a lot to do with that. And I don't mean this as a slight against my mother and father, because according to the spiritual doctrine and metaphysical doctrine, I picked my father and my mother before I came to this third dimensional earthly realm. And that was the contract that we signed, right? So that's some deep stuff, and I know a lot of religious people would completely dismiss that, because in the spiritual or metaphysical community is also talked about of, the conversation of reincarnation, and how many of us have been here several times, possibly several hundred lives or whatever, right? We just recycle until we get it right, and then we graduate successfully, completely to the next realm. I think that would be considered the fifth dimension, to where we don't come back to this realm in human form again. And so, I guess the best way I could put it is that, it's just been a lot of really shitty experiences at times. And it's just life. It's just what is so, right? And a part of it is, what's there for me. I've thought about this often. Like, if I were to become a parent, and then the thought is like, I would never become a parent, because I would never want to have a child of mine have the potential to go through a lot of the shit that I've gone through, and so it's like, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, yeah, I got that. And there's also some stuff I'm learning too about how, a couple that's in love, if you will, so to speak, how if they're practicing Karitsa, they have that experience of oneness by just having this blissful orgasm or experience of enjoying each other, to where they never conceive a child because there's no goal in mind. They're just there for each other and their pleasure and their fulfillment of each other and their relationship with each other. And if they choose to get into a procreative state or mating state, then that will, produce a child. And the point I'm really speaking to is that if you choose to become a parent, your children have their contracts that they sign with the parents, and, like I've touched on. So all you can really do is give them a good foundation. And that's all I'm really wanting to get to, is how, as a parent, I cannot emphasize this, and I don't mean to sound like overly serious, and it's kind of serious. Excuse me. So it's like, give your children those foundations that give them the best possible chance of having success in life. And that's, learning the basics, reading, writing, math, arithmetic, or what is it? Arithmetic, writing, reading, whatever. And making sure they got their studies down, whether you homeschool your children, whether you send them to a government school, whatever. Make sure they know the fundamentals, make sure they know the basics, because if you don't, their life is going to be unnecessarily difficult. And I know parents, and I assert that was even the case with my mom and dad. They were dealing with whatever they were dealing with. And at times, the focus wasn't on myself and my younger brother, to where they could have, made more sure that we had what we needed to be proficient in math and science, two very important areas that most of the Western world is behind in compared to like how we used to be as a country. You have like India and China and even Africa. And I don't mean to say that to be dismissive of the motherland. It's far from it. Africa is a powerhouse. Everything originated from, that's why they call it the motherland. So the brilliance and the genius of those different countries within that amazing continent shows up in the fact that they're incredibly proficient in math and science a lot of times, like China and India. And when we don't get those fundamentals on how to learn, how to think critically, how to think analytically, how to question things, how to really, be excited about learning. I mean, even though I've had problems with math and science, and it's cost me a lot of stress here recently with 2 recent jobs that I've had. And I'm actually, going to be taking a math course and working to correct that, and be more proficient in that space. Because in a way, I feel like that's largely why I've struggled when it comes to numbers. I know it is. And I also believe that's largely why I've had such a poor relationship with money, where I've always, seemingly whatever I made was never enough. And most of the time it was minimum wage because I didn't have the trade skills or the math skills or whatever it was. Or if you could say at one time in my life, the people skills to take the higher level positions so that I could, really make better money. And it's more to it than just money. It's about having the right mindset when it comes to the money that we make. Because you have a lot of people that are wealthy, that are stressed, that hate themselves, that hate their life, whatever. You have a lot of smart people that hate themselves and hate their life. So it's all context. And at the same time, from my perspective, and, I'm speaking from my perspective, obviously, make sure your children have the fundamentals down. And especially as a Black man or Black woman, because when we look at the history of this country, it's well documented how we have been like basically walking around with a bullseye on our chest, even when we didn't know we had a bullseye on our chest, simply because of the color of our skin and our history and the resentment that there is for us and our history. So, Black parents, please, even if you hate your spouse, and I say this on everything I love, please find it within yourself. And I know that's not always easy when you get together with somebody and y'all get, freaky deaky, and next thing you know, the person is pregnant or whatever, and you choose to have the child, and then you come to find out you and the person that you conceived the child with are diametrically opposed on some of the most important and fundamental conversations when it comes to a healthy relationship, and y'all go y'all separate ways. Find it within yourself, for the sake of the children, to keep the courts out of your relationship as much as possible. Be mature and take care of those children. Give them the foundation and the fundamentals that they need to where they can go out into the world, and even if mom and pops ain't together, they know one thing. Even if they hate your guts in the moment, and shout out to Mr. John Roseman, I believe is his name, who talks a lot about parenting, and he's a Christian. I'm not a Christian. However, I respect the man's message greatly because it is based in old school discipline. It's based in old school, I'm going to whoop your ass if you don't get in there and get those studies done. I'm going to whoop your ass if you don't get in there and eat all that food that's on the plate that we work so hard to provide for your little ungrateful ass. I know that may sound a little harsh and abrasive for some people. I don't care. I'm saying this from my experience, and I know what makes the difference. You have to teach your children some level of discipline and respect for authority within your own household. Because if they do not have respect for you and the authority of your household, they're gonna go out into the world and they're gonna be a complete fuck up a lot of times. Not all the time, but many times. And that's a reflection of you as a parent. And I don't say this to be dismissive of parents who may be traumatized over the fact that their kids, because in hindsight, they realize they were not stern enough with their children, or they let their differences with their spouse interfere with, taking care of the child, to where the child is all fucked up, and just out in the world and, just a degenerate, a loser, a lowlife, right? It's all relative. So this isn't to be dismissive of those parents, because I know most parents in their heart of hearts want the best for their children. And again, a lot of this is a deeper spiritual conversation, and sometimes is a disconnect for so many people that are religious, because they don't acknowledge reincarnation. They don't acknowledge soul contracts. It's all about waiting for Jesus to come back and then everything is going to be great. Well, that ain't the way it works. I hate to break it to you, but we're it. Ain't nobody coming. You know what I'm saying? And so the best thing you can do is to give your children the best, most balanced and healthy foundation possible. And a large part of that starts with the education that they receive. And also when it comes to getting some discipline sometimes, even if that means spanking their behind, because if you are in a space of constantly allowing your children to get away with shit, if you're enabling them, if you're not teaching them to stand on their own 2 feet and be self-reliant, teach your children how to play chess. If anything, that's one of the things that I've learned. That's another great tool to help young people learn to be self-reliant, because at the end of the day, nobody cares. You got to figure it out. And when you get into enough shit in life, consciously or unconsciously, and I don't necessarily mean like, prison or anything like that, but when you go through enough adversity in your life and you realize that your attempts to reach out to certain people are not being met, or the people you're trying to call aren't calling you back, and a lot of times they might even be your own family, you realize in that moment, or the spouse that you thought was ride or die and had your back no matter what, or the friends that you thought had your back no matter what, just bounce on your ass and just disappear. It's up to you. It's up to me. Ain't nobody coming. So get the message. And wherever you are in this conversation, this isn't to be, like dismissive. If anything, my challenge has been most of my life, and I'm kind of ducking because I was trying to, not have my head cut off in the video. This may be too late for that now. But the whole thing that's been unique about my journey is the fact that I tend to see both sides of the issue, even when I don't want to. And so often I've had the experience of being in the middle. Like as an example, and I think I mentioned this in my last video about Tile and Marble Outlet, and how, I could relate to the guys that were doing the job, and at the same time, and talking to the business owner and having a chance to hear some of his experience, I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know that. You know what I'm saying? This guy's dealing with a lot. And a lot of times the other side can only see it from their perspective. And I think that's a human thing. We all tend to, be selfish and just look at things from our point of view. The bigger growth or the bigger challenge is to take it upon ourselves to really be over there with the other person and really listen for what is going on in their world if we choose to. I think that's where the difference is made. That's my assertion. You can choose to not see their point of view at all. And actually, I understand that. It's almost like a self-preservation, because it's like if you start dancing in their conversation sometimes, then you start to lose sight of what your objective and what your point is and why you need to express yourself in the way you need to express yourself. So it's all a choice, So just to, kind of, shut this down and be complete, wherever you are in life and whatever your choices are, know that you can make better choices. And ideally, if we go into a totally spiritual level, those, choices from like a soul contract point of view, Akashic Records point of view, a metaphysical point of view, a totally spiritual point of view are a lot of times conversations that take us out of the worldly communication that so many people are a part of. Excuse me. And as Christ said, be in the world, not of the world. And Christ was actually a revolutionary. Christ was against the status quo. Christ threw out the lawyers and the bankers, the money changers, as we call them, that were gambling in the temple. He wasn't a pacifist. And you have to, as much as you can, it's the child's choice as well. So I chose to be a pacifist to one degree or another and not stand up for myself. Why I made that choice, I don't really know. That's why I'm doing things like getting these readings and stuff like that, and asking my guardian angels, ancestors, and spirit guides for guidance and things along those lines, because it's been a struggle. It's been rough. It's been like a nightmare at times, and I'm attempting to make sense out of it all and figure out, why did I come here? A lot of people have fun in life. That's been very few and far between for me. A lot of people have made great money. I haven't. I've barely gotten by most of my life, and I'm 53 years of age. That doesn't work. I need to be in a position where I can take care of myself. I don't care what's going on in the economy. I don't give a fuck what the government's doing or not doing. It's up to us. We are co-creators with the Creator. And a lot of times when we have been traumatized, and I use that word and I try to use it minimally because I think it's overused in common language these days, a lot of us have some deep-seated issues that have to be dealt with so we can get to the other side of that crap and really be our greatness and be the contribution and the clearing for, abundance and prosperity and great relationships and joy and fulfillment, and great health. You name it. I think in the Bible it talks about heaven on earth. That's one of the things I say quite often. We're meant to have our heaven on earth in this lifetime, in this incarnation. And it takes something sometimes to get to that point and work through all of that, emotional baggage that we have from our childhood and even being circumcised, that's just something that comes to mind off the top of my head. That's a trauma. We aren't meant to be mutilated the way we've been as a population of men. And you could even say women in a lot of ways, being mutilated the way that we have been. That's a psychic imprint on us that on some level the subconscious doesn't forget. You know what I mean? And so as best you can, if you are in that conversation to become a parent, have your agreements with your spouse and with your partner, and do the best you can to always look out for the best interests of that child. And I know my parents did. God bless them. I love them dearly. They're amazing people. And this isn't meant as a slight to them. I just realize how important it is for a child to be prepared. A lot of people say life is war. And I get that, because in a lot of ways it is. And also life is a game. And it's a game that's meant to be played. Check out Florence Scovel Shin, The Game of Life and How to Play it. It's a game, and we can play to win. We can play to accomplish what we want to accomplish and have fun. You have so many people that have amazing lives, and they inspire me. Some of the people that I follow on Instagram and everything that they're up to, they're amazing people. And I'm inspired by their success because a lot of them look like me. And most of the time growing up, if I watched television, I saw very few people that look like me that actually seemed to be empowered. Most of the time, it was always us being the degenerate or the loser or the gambler, or all those negative stereotypical depictions of us being these lower vibrational beings, when that's actually the opposite of who we really are. Yeah, we can be those things, obviously. All races can, but show a balanced picture. And most oftentimes, we were often depicted as just these degenerate, low-life scumbags that weren't worthy of the air that we breathe. And so when I see, black men or women that have, in particular black men, because I'm a man, is to see black men having success and overcoming the difficulties that they've experienced. It's inspiring to me. And in many ways, it's been one of those lifelines that's kept me going all these years through some very dark and difficult times. So do the best you can, folks, to raise those young men and those young women with the foundations of what it takes to be self-reliant and to be able to take care of themselves into their teenage and adult years. Because you're not going to always be around, obviously, we know that. And the better off we prepare those young people for the harsh realities of life, as well as the joys of life, the better we position them to be able to have success and to be balanced in their person. You know, and when I say balanced, I'm talking spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally balanced, to where they are a contribution to the betterment of humanity, as opposed to being a drain on it. And at times I have felt like I was a drain on humanity and on my fellow man or even my coworkers or whatever, because, you know, at times it occurs to me like I've had to be perfect in my communication or in everything that I do. And that's insane. Nobody's perfect. You can't be perfect. We're human and everybody makes mistakes. And that's one of the mind fucks as well that we get programmed with in the public fool system. As my man Tahuti, my odd rod, would say, is that we get programmed with this, and even Robert Kiyosaki talks about that, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and even the lady who created the Spanx panty liners, the high women's panty line, she talked about how her dad was joyful about them making mistakes. He would literally ask them when they came home every day from school or whatever, how many mistakes did you make today? That's actually a part of the process of life. We're supposed to make mistakes. The key is to learn from the mistakes, because that's where the growth comes from. So if you know, for all of us to work and make a more concerted effort to raise these young folks with a healthy mindset and healthy self-esteem and self-love, and that's something that I'm working on every day, because for most of my life, that has not been the case. I have not loved myself. If I loved myself, I would have never taken the kind of shit that I've taken from the people that I've taken shit from, ever. And I remember hearing this, and I've heard this more than one time, that Africans in the continent of Africa typically do not like Black Americans. And a large part of it, I assert, is because Black Americans take a lot of shit from other races and even from each other, that in Africa, this is my assertion, they don't take from each other, much less other races. Now, I know there are parts of Africa that are, you know, the people have this cowering or submissive posture. I mean, the continent was colonized. So on some level, they had to have that, even though we are kings and queens, you know, that's our lineage. At the same time, somewhere along the line of history, we fell from grace, big time. And I mean, in a big way, in a bad way, we fell from grace. And so, and at the same time, one of the things that, and maybe it's because, you know, Africans from the continent, maybe they're more arrogant or something. I don't know. I just have heard that more than one time, that they don't like Black Americans. And I personally believe it's because they see how much Black Americans just don't love and respect themselves and don't stand up for themselves. So, I mean, you know, whether that's, you know, right or wrong in terms of my assertion, the point is, we as a people, regardless, I mean, like the human race, but in particular Black people, we have to find a way to stand up for ourselves. We have to find a way to practice radical self-love. We have to get that white Jesus off the wall. And that's no knock against whatever faith you have. In the Bible, though, it says that his hair was like wool and his feet were like bronze. That's not a Caucasian person. And that's no slight against Caucasians. That isn't meant to be a slight against Asians or Latinos. It ain't about that. I'm talking about Black folks. We got to find our self-esteem. We got to find that self-love. And it starts with us, you know? And it's interesting, and I'll complete with this. There's a quote from Gandhi that says, who didn't like Black people, if you didn't know that. I guess they have a caste system in India or whatever, and he hated Black people. He said he made some great comments, though, great statements. And people get caught up a lot of times in who says it. I don't give a fuck about who says it. I'm like, does it make sense? Is it true? And one of the things that Gandhi said is be the change, and I may be paraphrasing it, but the point is, he said, be the change that you most want to see in the world. That's what it's all about, regardless of race, creed, or color, sexual orientation or whatever. Be the change that you most want to see in the world. And a large part of that starts with self-love, self-respect, speaking up for ourselves and refusing to take shit from people that are being disrespectful towards us. And that doesn't necessarily even mean being physically violent to them. It just means, speaking our truth and saying what we have to say. Because ain't nobody coming. That's the point. So whether you choose to get your Akashic Records done, whether you choose to get your Vedic astrology chart read, whether you choose to get into metaphysics, or just those more esoteric ways of kind of connecting to source and who we are, why we're here, and why we came here, that's entirely your call. I ain't knocking it. I remember hearing this some years ago when I was at a health food store, and the guy was criticizing somebody that I guess was in his family or one of his friends that was very religious. And the woman that worked there made a great point. I never forgot it. She said, okay, I got that, maybe it doesn't work for you, right? However, if it brings that person in your life, your family member or your friend, if it brings them peace, why would you knock it? And that's where I am with that. So whether you are agnostic, devout Christian, whatever, spiritual, wherever you are, it's okay. If it brings you peace in your earthly walk on this plane and this time on your journey to help make sense out of why you're here, to help you to understand more about why you're here, to really be able to be a contribution to your family and your community, that's what it's all about. Because to me, and this is one of the last things I'll say, one of the biggest things that's there for me, that is why this country is in an absolute upside down shitstorm, among other things, is because the family is not valued in America, and it has not been valued for a long time. And my assertion, going back to even when I was living in Detroit, was when you tear down the family, it's just a matter of time before that society that we know collapses in on itself. And that's largely what is showing up now, and why there's so many issues and so many just things just completely off in society. And it's not to say that we always love our siblings or we have the best relationship with our mother or father. It ain't about that. At one time in this country, when people lived a more realistic life, all these so-called creature comforts and modern advances are many ways just nothing more than just distractions to keep us from really being in touch with ourselves. The bigger point is, at one time when we didn't have all that, we knew all we had was each other. So we worked it out and we stuck together, whether that was mom and pops or brothers and sisters. I mean, we found a way because we knew that the folks over there didn't care about us. The people at City Hall downtown didn't give a shit about us. You know what I'm saying? So we did what we could to make sure that we took care of each other and we held each other up as best we could. So wherever you are in the conversation, it's all good. Just some thoughts, and hope all of you folks can continue to make empowering choices for your life and find joy and fulfillment, and continue to ask, like I said before, your guardian angels, ancestors, and spirit guides for assistance, to really empower you, as opposed to, enabling you or, kind of babying you through life. That never served anybody well. You need to teach these children, we need to teach each other how to stand on our own 2 feet, because there will come times in life, as my pops would say, when a man must walk alone. There'll come times in life when you are all you got, because truthfully, That's always the case. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're all you got. And if you have that kind of connection with the Creator to where you can call upon that relationship and have it sustain you and strengthen you through some, difficult times, and even acknowledge that power when you have great times and joyful experiences, that's awesome. But above all else, in a physical form, we all we got. And if you have the community, if you have that tribe that you've built intentionally and y'all got each other's back, hold each other up, you know what I'm saying? Or as they would say in the hood, hold each other down, and figuratively speaking, So take care of yourselves, folks. Be well. Continue to go for your best life, and know that life really is beautiful. And it's just about our choices and continuing to work on ourselves to heal those wounds, and know that somehow, some way, it's okay. Peace.